There's many hows and whys as to why we use dissociation as a way to cope in our adult life due to childhood trauma. Let's explore this on today's Ask a Show. One of the most common coping mechanisms that therapists see from clients is the use of dissociation. It's a common coping mechanism that needed to be there during our traumatic childhood. But as an adult, we don't need it so much, if at all. We can learn to let go of dissociation and stay more in the moment of what's unfolding at the time. Work with the feelings that are coming up in the moment. The only reason we need to cut off feelings is because we're afraid of feelings. And if you're raised in a childhood where feelings weren't permitted, feelings weren't allowed to be expressed, the parents didn't help you explore your feelings or create a safe space for you to express them, then as a child we learn to dissociate. We don't want to feel those feelings. And so there's many ways we do it, and there's many whys as to why we do it. I know for myself, growing up due to childhood trauma, I became really good at cutting off my feelings. I could dissociate like this. So it's a way to protect ourselves. I protected myself that way. And then what we do, rather than stay in the situation which is fearful to us at the time. Now this can play out in terms of feeling like you're daydreaming, all the way to the other end of the pendulum where you're intensely focused. But either way, it's a sign of dissociation if it's a go-to method as a way to cope. It's sort of like you're there, but you're not there. You can see what's going on. You maybe even know how to act, how to conduct yourself, but you're not really present. You're depersonalized in a way. And you have a sense that you're not really there because you're not fully present. You're not fully there. And we do it for different reasons, to get away from memories, from thoughts, from feelings, as I mentioned, from some part of our identity we don't like, or losing our personal space. There's really not an us there. Maybe we're being emotionally taken over, being abused sexually or physically. We can't really stay in the body. It's just too scary at the time, so we dissociate. And intellectualizing things, overthinking, ruminating, and then this would play out in OCD-ish kind of symptoms, like having a lot of to-do lists. Also, one can lose memories of their past, be unable to remember new events, upcoming events, have confusion in general, and trouble sleeping sometimes. Other ways of saying it is that you feel like your mind is wandering, you're going blank. Could feel like an out-of-body experience. People tell you your eyes have glazed over. You have a blank look, a glazed look on your face and your eyes. It can pop up like this due to our fight or flight reaction that's just innately a part of who we are. That's there for a reason, perhaps going back thousands of years ago. It's in our DNA. So with my experience, a lot of it was spacing out, not being present, as I mentioned earlier, and therefore you catch yourself not able to follow a conversation. All of a sudden you come back in for a moment and you're like, what? I missed out on what these people were talking about. Could be during a television show or a movie. What plot part did I miss here? Or somebody can be so good at putting on an act, being a chameleon, wearing that mask as a way to cope and survive. So used to just being Mr. Nice Guy that in that role, they're forgetting what's really going on. They're not aware of what's really going on. Now, I did mention anxiety. That's a big one. With dissociative identity, a person may have an alter, actually split off into a different personality. They needed these different identity states as a way to survive childhood trauma. Dissociative fugue is similar to a bit of amnesia. When they're under stress, perhaps when they leave home, for example, they have a new identity when they're away from home. But when they're home and they feel safe, they're back to just being their old self, maybe without even knowing what really happened. Depersonalization or derealization is where a person is not even sure they're in their body. You can maybe see something happening, but am I doing that? Feel like time is moving either too slow or too fast. There's an issue in terms of understanding time. And everything, including the situation or other people, seems sort of dreamlike. There's like a foggy quality to everything. And with dissociative depression, it's a bit of a different depression than the more common clinical depression that we're more familiar with. This can, for example, encompass more mood swings or weight fluctuation within the depression. And when we look at borderline personality disorder, BPD, people who suffer from BPD are excellent at dissociating. In fact, dissociation is one of the needed criteria to have a diagnosis of borderline. Also, childhood neglect is a common past issue for adults who are dealing with borderline in their life. Generally, people who struggle with addiction issues in their life, this all stems from wanting to dissociate on some level from uncomfortable feelings. They want to numb it out. They want it to go away. So one way to do that is to simply get hooked on drugs or alcohol. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, is very common with dissociation. Think about it if you're wanting to push away some uncomfortable thoughts or feelings. You just want them to go away, but they feel sort of intrusive. You're feeling out of control with that, right? So you want to regain control in whatever way you can. And one way that it seems plausible at the time is we can regain control by controlling everything about our life. How I touch doorknobs, how often I wash my hands, having a little ritual before I do this or before I do that. And sometimes a bit of ADHD. Think about when you see a kid with ADHD or ADD. They seem to not be able to focus. They're all over the map a little bit. They need an accurate diagnosis because yes, it could be from actual attention deficit hyperactive disorder, or it could be because they're dissociating. We have to really work with our feelings. And the more we do that, the more the symptoms of dissociation will just diminish on their own, in their own way, in their own time. So let me know your thoughts about dissociation. Please leave some comments below. I'd love to hear your story, maybe how you dissociate in your life, how you've worked with it. Please subscribe to my mental health YouTube channel if you like these kind of videos. And until next week, this is Brad Shore signing off from Ask a Shrink.